Welcome, Rich. We're here for another episode of this Sports Card Insights podcast. The episode today is on Then and Now, the National Sports Collectors Convention. I was at the very first one. I've been to every one. You've been to almost all of them, but we've seen the evolution of an idea. I remember talking to Gavin Riley and Steve Bruner and Mike Burkus when this was their idea, and they pitched it to me. I remember in my very first price guide, we gave them a complimentary ad to promote this concept, and it was successful and was off to the races. So you've been to how many?
I've been to probably about 33, 34, 35.
Out of 40?
This will be,
41?
This is actually 1980 to 2019, so this is technically the 40th national.
Okay.
So I've probably been to about 85% of them. And you've been able to go to every one, which is very rare. There aren't very many people.
There's a handful.
There's a handful. There's only 3 dealers left that have had officially tables.
My contemporaries, yeah.
Your contemporaries, John Ramirez, B.A. Murray, and Pat Quinn are the only 3 who are listed as table holders at the very first show and still table holders today.
Which I think is really cool. I'm glad we have that continuity, and I hope that that I'm there for a long time and that those guys are too. It's always good to catch up with those guys. I've had various dealings with each one of them pleasantly for so many years.
I always feel good, with John and BA are usually next to each other.
Yeah.
So I always know that at the beginning of a day I can just hang out there for a few minutes, go chat with John behind the table or chat with BA. And
you realize each one of them has the same stuff each year, I think.
But that's okay. I find something I find something at their tables every year anyway.
They have their approach, and the amazing thing, the amazing thing is he has non-overlapping inventory in many cases from anybody else in the room, and so does John Ramirez. But John Ramirez, the amazing thing about those are duplicates. He brings all this obscure stuff, and it's his duplicate stuff, and he collects color variations and just a master collector.
Well, John
and Quinn is a whole nother story. He was in it as a business before it was cool to have it as a business. He had an auction, he had a store, and again, his auction was cool, and his store was amazing.
And I send people to John each year because he has all that cool Venezuelan stuff. Because he actually made buying trips to Venezuela.
He made buying trips down there.
And so he's got all that
Chico Carrasquel.
Yes, and he's got all that stuff, and I'll send people, by the way, go buy some Twins cards from John. Oh, are you sure? Yeah, you'll want them. Don't even worry about the price. I'll just tell him to take care of you. Okay, done. And so John's cool. BA's got all this oddball stuff. And you're right, a lot of the stuff he has, you won't find the rest of the show.
Well, the whole thing about doing price guides, that is the easy part is when a card is, which I think is positive. It's made collectors not quite as reliant on price guides, or certainly not as reliant on price guides, but price guides are still of value, but they're guides. So
and they always have been, they always will be, and unless it's the Beckett OPG, which gets updated basically on a daily basis. I mean, obviously, Brian and his staff can't do, millions of cards every day. But if it's a somewhat popular card, it's going to get updated fairly frequently. Right. So there's a lot to be said for the immediacy of the OPG. And some people say, well, I can look up completed prices on eBay, or I can look at this source, or I can look at ComC and see what stuff is sold for on ComC, and I can look here.
Yeah, but the wise dealer, wise collector is probably doing all the above.
Yes.
Because I think it's there. You're getting more data points, and some of them are more empirical, and some of them are more opinion, and some of them, even the ones that appear to be empirical, you sometimes have to take some of the sales with a grain of salt. But nevertheless, that's what it is, and then you have to make your own decision of, am I willing to? Is this price that I saw on eBay, is that representative or is that a fluke? Is that two guys that got into a bidding war that bid it way beyond what it's worth, or whatever? So context is important, and we tried to do that back in the day, and I know the current regime tries as well, but it's challenging.
Right, and that's one of the changes. As I said, everybody has access to more information. Another change with the National then and now, corporate booths. There really weren't corporate booths in 1980. There were, I think the first corporate booth I ever remember was whatever company became Score, the print, they did sports flicks. They had a booth at the 86 National. They were really the first corporate booth. And it kept exploding and exploding and exploding. And now you go to the National, some people go to the National buy cards. Other people go to the National so they can talk to or get the goodies from the corporates.
Right.
Other people go to the National because Jeff Rosenberg and Bobby Mintz and
ton of great autograph
they bring in a
opportunities.
ton of great autograph guests. And hey, I'm going to spend my time in the autograph pavilion and get.
Well, it's become a microcosm, a small version of the big picture, that people can come in there, walk in the room with X dollars, and there are many different ways to completely drain those X dollars. And so if you walk around the room, which takes a while anyway, to figure out how I want to spend the money, if you really have a budget and you're going to spend it, it's hard to get around to see every table, because if you did that, by the time you got to the end and checked out, you'd want to go back to that first table for that really good deal. And that really good deal was gone Wednesday night.
Well,
because it was a good deal. And so you've got to know what you're going to spend, what you're looking for, and prioritize. And that's hard.
One of my better local customers is going to the National for the first time. His girlfriend's very supportive of the hobby. She says, out of all things you can spend money on, I see you're having fun with it. I see you're making some money on what you're buying and selling. I see you're having, it's a good thing for you. And I told him when I saw him, make sure whatever you think you bring to the National double. And he says, well, I'm going to bring 5 times. He said, after I went through Kyle Robertson's big Frisco show and I saw what was there, he says, I'm bringing 5 times what I originally planned. And, one thing I stressed to him is that if you see something, he collects, he's looking to buy and sell stuff, but he's also a Bagwell and Biggio collector. So if you see the 88 Score update glossy Biggio in a PSA 9 or a Beckett 9.5 or some high grade, and the price is really good and it's the glossy, which is a really tough card, he's just going to buy that because it's a good deal. But if it's a $2 Jeff Bagwell jersey card, he can pass on that and then just come back, okay, I'll sit down the third day and see if there's any left at this table. And that's and that's what you're saying, is that one of the rules of thumb for the National is that if it's a really good deal and it's a really tough item, don't even hesitate, just buy it when you see it.
Well, from the very beginning, from the very first year in 1980, it was always a very special event. But over the years, especially as we got into the 90s, it became a must-attend event and certainly the key show event of the year. And now you're going to see stuff there that you won't see anywhere else. And you've got to strike when you can, or you're not going to wait to find something at a local show. You may find something online, but to be able to see it, touch it, and be able to walk away with it, there's a real value there. And that's always been there, but it's, even with all the online activity, there's still an aspect of being there, being with your mainly brothers, but also sisters. Oh, by the way, there's some people listening to this podcast that are going to write in and wonder if your friend's wife has some sisters.
You know what? I will ask him.
Because they're looking for women like that are going to be very understanding. So, and the 5X, if the wife likes that, that's even higher marks for that.
Yes. But
we'll
one of the things is, in addition, like my employer ComC last year, we keep track of, let's say, how many boxes of stuff last year we shattered the amount of cards we'd ever shipped back before from a National. We shipped 37 boxes of, moving boxes of stuff back to Redmond, Washington.
You're not talking about 800 counts.
I'm not talking about 800 count boxes. I'm talking about, you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you buy moving boxes, the ones that the movers use to move stuff in. And we sent 37 back to the home. And, because for everybody, there's a coterie of people who will go to the National and sit at dealers' tables and buy stuff to send to ComC. And since ComC's there, it's like, okay, hey,
No
I don't
shipping.
have no shipping, yay. I can just go through it once and give it to them and know it's going to get there.
Well, I've enjoyed being a customer of ComC. I've been for quite a while now, and it's a lot of fun to be able to buy and sell somewhat anonymously and with, again, there's no, the price can be, you can make an offer. On the other hand, people are free to put whatever price they want on there. And so you decide if you want it or you don't, and people can decide if they want your card or they don't. And like I said, I really think it's cool that people that have extra cards can give other people who want those cards an opportunity to get them at a reasonable price with reliable and excellent shipping. And so I've been pleased with that. But again, at the National,
They're one of many.
it's best of both worlds because they're there as well as all the others.
One of many. I
And
mean,
so
Topps
it's,
is
yeah.
there, Upper Deck is there, Panini's there. All the card companies are there. I should mention Leaf. They're also local. Beckett's there, PSA's there, SGC's there. All the major grading companies are there.
Well, what about the Breaking Pavilion?
The Breaking Pavilion's really
positive development?
I was a big fan of breaking when I first heard the concept, and I still am, because in many cases it gives people chances to get cards of teams they
Well, they're likely to get cards they want and not have to worry about the cards they don't want.
And
they can pay a slight premium for that. I believe it's a slight premium.
It is.
It's a business. It has to work. You do the math, but it's
Breaker
and some of these cases are very expensive.
Right, and the breakers make money and that's okay. And as you said, you pay a little more, and that's okay. But you're getting what you want, and
Otherwise, if you don't have that, it's hard to be a collector if you have to buy stuff you don't want. That forces you to be a collector and a dealer. And a lot of people buy and sell, but you want to be mainly acquiring things that you want and having less of stuff that you don't want that you can trade or sell or otherwise.
One of my former teammates at Beckett, Mike Jasperson, now has Jaspy's case breaks.
Absolutely.
And, there was a guy, the other half of Fat Packs, Paul, I forget his last name, I believe Went was his last name. He's in Waxahachie now, about an hour from here, and he's a 24/7 breaker is the name of his
He has a store and a breaking platform?
It's a small store. And I think remember one of the things about having retail establishments is some of the card companies want you to be brick and mortar.
So they'll give you stuff.
So they give you
or
stuff.
They'll sell you stuff.
So they'll sell you stuff. So that's actually helped cause an uptick of stores, which is actually good for the hobby.
Plus you get feedback. You have real people giving you real feedback, and sometimes online is not as real. But the National, again, if no one has been, if someone listening has not been, it's frequently in Chicago, which is in the middle of the country. It has not been on the West Coast, which I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not the decision maker there, but I always had a great time on the West Coast. But it's occasionally on the East Coast, but mostly in the Midwest. And Chicago's pretty easy to get to if you're willing to jump on a plane. And I will be there.
And I will tell you, one of the great things with Chicago is you can walk to so many things from the Rosemont Convention, from the Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont. There's so much hotels nearby. There's so many restaurants nearby. You are not exactly missing chances to have fun. You don't have to drive around like you do in Cleveland.
But you don't even need to rent a car.
You don't even need to rent a car.
Save there too, and it's so close to the airport. So it's a great location for a show.
And I think we discovered last year that Chicago every other year is probably a very good idea, and like rotate cities. Like Cleveland every 4 years seems to work well, and then maybe rotate if you can find Atlantic City for the East Coast. If you can somehow get Anaheim. If there's other.
Well, there's these decisions are made by vote of the dealers.
Right.
There's a committee that gets elected that makes some of the decisions, but ultimately it's put. I think those things are put to a vote for the table
and they are,
holders
and you
who
know,
have priorities and ability to be represented and to make these decisions. So it got so huge for some of the years. It's actually shrunk back a little bit or pared down a little bit to make it more manageable. I don't remember how many years ago it was so big. Everybody
got
had
lost. I remember,
booths,
I remember going through one of the rooms at the National, and it took me 2 days, and I'm thinking, wow, what a show this was. Rich, there's another room the same size. Oh no. Okay. And then I trudged up for another 2 days, and I was literally drained. And one of the,
drained in a good way.
Drained in a good way. And the thing with the National, if you haven't been there for a long time, the only downer, and it's not really a downer because it's how the world has changed, is we used to have seminars at the National. We used to have a state of the hobby roundtable. We used to have flipping contests and trivia contests and softball and things like that. Now the National is more purely buying, selling, trading, more of a business. And that's how it evolved. It doesn't mean that it's bad or good. It just is how it's evolved. And hopefully, maybe someday we can go back to have at least one show with the Roots where we can actually have other things in addition to everybody.
We've got some wonderful sponsors for this show: Beckett Media, ComC, a couple of companies that do data very well, BGS and BAS included in that. A couple of great card shops, Burbank Sports Cards and Mike's Stadium Sports Cards in California and Colorado, respectively. 2 outstanding auction companies, Heritage as well as Huggins and Scott. And 3 major card companies, Panini, Topps, and Upper Deck. Please patronize our sponsors. They're good companies and worthy of your consideration. Has been